My name is Dustin Johnson, and I have been attending Elevate Life Church both online and in person since April of 2021. Growing up, I grew up Catholic in a normal family, no problems or issues. By the time I got to being old enough, I was already starting to kind of run off course and get off track. I used my first drugs at the age of 12 years old. At the age of 19 years old, I actually got my girlfriend pregnant, and she ended up having an abortion. The abortion really messed me up more than I thought, and I just continued to drink and party and run around and get wild. Gratefully, God's grace is so amazing that I was able to find my wife in the midst of my storm. On day one of me meeting my wife, she actually told me that she had a disease called endometriosis, and she had just been diagnosed with it. And the words that came out of my mouth were, "Oh, it's okay. I had an abortion when I was younger, so this is probably just punishment for me. It's all gonna be okay." She had another surgery for her endometriosis. She ended up having a total of 5 of them. But on the first surgery that I was a part of, actually was the day that I asked her to marry me. The second I took them 2 pills, it was the changer for my life. I went down a nasty road as she was going down through endometriosis and surgery after surgery and writhing around on the floor in pain and all of these things. Our lives were starting to crumble. She had lost her way of life. She was missing work. She was having all these problems, and I couldn't do anything to help her. And it was depressing. It was devastating. And ultimately, like, she was so far ahead in the endometriosis before anybody really knew what it was or how to help it. It was just crushing us on the inside. I ended up being the president of a motorcycle group, and it was wilding out, and we were going 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction. In 2012 was the year that kind of broke the camel's back. Endometriosis had basically taken over, and she ended up having a hysterectomy at the age of 26. About 3 months later, I checked into a treatment center in Knoxville, Tennessee. I was taking 6,000 milligrams of prescription pills a day. We had completely lost track. Our marriage was a wreck. Our health was a wreck. Our finances were a wreck. Like, every facet and form of our life was completely disaster. When I got home from treatment, we knew that we needed to do something. We knew we needed to get to work on ourselves and get to work on each other. And so we basically committed to each other to stay sober, be sober, and we started working on our health. January 2020, I left the corporate world and we took off on the road and traveling all over in the bus that we had converted, and it was just the beginning of us. It was the beginning of like pure freedom, but there was still things happening in our lives. It was all just still a little spicy and things still needed figured out. So we went to an event where we heard a couple of speakers that ultimately were going to change our lives. The first speaker that came out for the whole event was this man named Keith Craft. And as my wife and I were sitting in the stands listening, tears rolling down my face, she's got tears rolling down her face. And we knew that something was missing in our lives. We knew that something needed to be fixed. And as Keith is speaking, man, it was all merely just God and people. And that was all the message I was hearing. It's like, we needed God in our lives and we needed different people in our lives. And here comes to the end of the event, and the last speaker is Steve Weatherford. And that man comes out and he speaks on God and people. And I'm in the stands crying again, not even knowing what's happening to me, but the good Lord had reached out to our hearts and was speaking to our spirits. And I just knew from that day forward, we needed God and different people in our lives. So that was when we started attending Elevate Life Church online. Sure, enough, there's a she gathering and a warrior night in the same week that we're rolling through town. So my wife ends up going to she gathering on Thursday night, and I end up going to warrior night on Friday night. And that was life-changing for me. I had met one dude on Instagram, his name's Josh Littauer, and he said, if I met him at the church, he would sit with me, and that was gonna be the only person that I knew. And we get towards the end, and Pastor Keith asked about the offering of $1,000 for whoever wanted to stand up and give as a warrior. And I was sitting there and I was like, I don't have the money, I can't do this, we're out traveling, like, and in my guts, like, it's just kind of boiling inside, and I just hear like, you got money in the bus. You can't literally sit here right now and say that you don't have it. Like, you have cash in the bus, you have this, you have that. And it was like, I just kept telling myself like, no, we can't do it. And finally, man, the Holy Spirit was like, you got to stand up. Like, you need to do this. And so I stand up, and Pastor keeps counting, and he says 125, 126, and he points at me and he says 127.
What's your name, sir?
I said, Dustin, and he said, Dustin, you're here for a reason tonight. And he just started speaking over me. And I'm sitting here talking to Josh Littauer, and I'm like, dude, what's happening? And he's got his hand on my shoulder, and he's just telling me like, it's gonna be all right. From here, everything's gonna get better. So as I'm sitting there, Pastor Keith's like, Dustin, I feel like God's got you out on a journey, and you've given up your whole life to do what you're doing. He starts speaking my life back to me, more or less. And I'm like, man, I don't even know this guy, and he knows me. So something's pretty special in this church. He calls me up to the front, and he starts prophesying over me and saying all kinds of good to me.
God's gonna 10x your dream.
And the next thing I know, he leans back and he says, Dustin, have you ever gave your life to Christ? And I said, no. And he said, today's the day. Give him everything you got. He said, you need God and you need people in your life, and it's time that you run with some good people. So raise your hands and give yourself to God. And right there, I ended up giving myself to Christ at Warrior Night in front of 400 people that I didn't even know. So we get done with that, and Pastor Keith says, turn around. I want to introduce you to your new brothers. And here's all these people hugging and high-fiving, and it was such a cool thing. No more cannabis, no more alcohol, no more nothing, and went free and sober. From there, we finished out our tour in December in San Diego, and we mad dashed across the country to get to Frisco before the Mighty Men Pass started on January 1st. And since then, it's just been like as much as we could get, as fast as we could get it, like just hearts on fire for God. We serve on the welcome team, tithing, offering, like anything that we could do with the church has just been like dive in and go with it. It's just been such an amazing journey, and I know that it's just getting started, but from here, like, it's whatever God's will is for us, and we're just down for whatever the cause is at this point. So if you're just sitting on the fence, waiting for something to happen or something to do, like, there's so much stuff to do at this church, like, just dive in. Like I said, there's Mighty Men, there's warrior conferences, there's she gatherings, they got youth stuff. Like, your whole family has opportunities to literally go above and beyond, elevate your thinking, elevate your life at this church, and it is like no other. You're not gonna find a church like this anywhere else. So whatever you are waiting for, stop waiting, because the time is now.